Hello, welcome to my channel. And today, I just want to talk a little bit about why I quit going to the temple, the LDS Temple. And so, to give you a background, I was a full tithe payer, went to church every Sunday, had a calling in the clerk's office, went to the temple a couple of times a month, and when I could, you know. So I did that for quite a while, and then, you know, one day I realized that I did ceilings one day when it was ward ceiling day, and I realized that that was a lot easier on me, because in the endowments, you know, I'm crippled and slow, and so you know, for me to put my robe on one side or the other, or take my shoes on or off is a big deal. So I was behind, you know, couldn't keep up. But of course I could do ceilings with ease. So I got to where I would do ceilings, and one day was ward ceiling day, and so I went and did ceilings, and there was a guy there and his wife, county commissioner, and he didn't like me at all. His hatred for me was approaching that of Satan towards God. And that's because, you know, in church he was always talking about how conservative he was and stuff, conservative. But actually, when it came to private property rights, he was a very socialist, communist prick, and a firm believer in big government. And so I was educating him one day in the hardware store, and he wasn't easy to educate. You know, he was high and mighty, you know, narcissist, you know, thinking he's considerably better than he actually is, and thinking he's considerably smarter than he actually is. And so I was educating him. And I was educating him, as I was educating him in the hardware store, people gathered around because, man, this was the show of the day, right? Little David was educating mighty Goliath. Goliath got his brain ass kicked, because it was like comparing a genius with a moron. And he didn't stand a chance against a person with a brain. And so he left the hardware store humiliated, with his tail between his legs, and of course there was a couple of dozen people standing around watching it all, taking it in, you know, kind of happy about what they were seeing, actually, you know, seeing some prick get put in his place, you know, by a nobody, you know, me. So anyway, that's why his hatred for me was so strong. I told him in the hardware store, I said, you needn't worry about running for re-election, because I'll see to it that you don't make it. And he didn't run for re-election. And he wouldn't have made it either, because there was no limit to what I would go to see that he didn't make it. You know, whether it was advertising on the radio or TV or newspaper, or, you know, passing around signatures or whatever it took, you know. Anyway, that's why he hated me. He still hates me. So this particular one day that I went to the temple to do ceilings, he and his wife were assigned by the bishop to do ceilings that day. And so Wilford Woodruff's great-grandson was the sealer, and of course it was a wonderful session, and you know, there was no sign of any animosity, and everybody did their thing like they're supposed to, and it was just the nicest sealing session anyone ever saw. And so I thought, well, that went well. And so and it's a good thing I was there, because there was like 50 kids that needed to be sealed. So that would have been impossible if I hadn't been there. So that was a big deal. It was very fortuitous that I was there. Anyhow, so it was about an hour drive home from the temple, and I get home, and I've been home maybe 10 minutes, and I get a call from the high priest group leader. And he says, you can't do sealings anymore. And I said, okay, but why not? He said, well, you have to be assigned by the bishop in order to do sealings. So I had never heard that before, and I'd been doing them. Nobody ever complained before, but I said, well, whatever, okay. So anyway, that was that. And so I started talking to other people about it, and they said, no, he's just an unrighteous bastard, exercising unrighteous dominion. When he was young, people thought he was stupid, and he learned that he could pay people to fight his battles for him, and so that's how he is, So he just sigged a high priest group leader on you. That's how he operates. He just wanted to get you in trouble but everybody said, but actually he's a liar, and that there is no such thing that said that you have to be assigned by the bishop to do sealings anyway. So I took it up with the bishop, and I said, well, gee, bishop, here's this evil prick, and he I told him, what happened and everything, and of course, he said, he was obviously wrong and out of place, but what you gonna do? And so I had been in conversation with communication with Dallin Oaks. I wrote a letter to Dallin Oaks one time at church headquarters, and it never even occurred to me that he'd write back. I mean, I figured he was far too busy to even acknowledge that I even existed, let alone write me back. But he did. So he wrote me back, and of course it wasn't about any of this kind of stuff and anything, but anyway, I had showed that letter to the bishop just as a matter of curiosity, hey, these guys, they'll write you back. So anyway, about not too very long after that, I got a call from the bishop's wife. And so it became pretty obvious who runs the house in that family. And she was angry. Phew. And she said, you better not be talking to Elder Oaks about this guy. He's my neighbor, and he gave me $500 when my kid died. And I thought, boy, he bought your integrity cheap, But anyway, so she says, I want you to promise me that you won't get him in trouble. Well, she knew that what he'd done was wrong. She knew that it was unrighteous dominion, and he should probably be disfellowshipped for it, for what he'd done. He was clearly out of line. And but anyway, so I said, well, okay, I won't tell him. Well, I wasn't going to tell him anyway, but I said, okay, I won't tell him. And because I never did write Dallin Oaks back anyway. So, but anyway, so I thought, well, okay. Everybody agrees that this guy is wrong. Everybody agrees that I'm right. But nobody is willing to stand up for what's truth or righteous. In other words, they're willing to die in order to protect a criminal activity. Like they do with the child molesters. If a person like a bishop or a stake president gets accused of child molestation, they don't call the police. They call the Curtin and McConkie law firm in Salt Lake, and don't make this public, So anyway, what it amounts to is I said, well, okay, so we got a lying bastard protected by a sissy bishop. And so what's really true here? So now you know, a lot of people, I mean, I made my decision, you know, I just said, you know, I believe in the scriptures, but I don't believe, you know, that Russell Nelson is a prophet. I mean, he claims to talk to God all the time, but he's never actually said anything in his lifetime that God ever actually told him. So there's no proof that he has ever talked to God, I mean, or that God has ever talked to him, you know. So, I mean, he's never even, I mean, he claims it, you know. He said he's a prophet and all that, but, you know, the scriptures say that, you know, your fruits show, you know, what's real, true, you know. And his fruits are evil and poisonous and fatal. So that doesn't remind anyone of Christ. So anyway, you know, that's why I quit, you know. And so I feel now even stronger about it, because now, you know, we're commanded to read Isaiah. I believe the scriptures. I believe that, you know, God had a record for us to follow. You know, he didn't send us down here blind. So, but the scriptures say, now like Isaiah, he says that in the last days, that the church leaders, he called them the drunkards of Ephraim, mad dogs. And he has quite a bit to say about that. But you'll never hear that in General Conference. They don't teach those scriptures. They don't want you reading Isaiah. In fact, there was a guy, Gigliotti, and he made Isaiah easy for the common person to understand. He wrote several books on how to understand Isaiah and what it really means and what it's about and why it's important. And so they excommunicated him. And but then it was common knowledge that they knew a hell of a lot more about the scriptures than he ever did or would, that any of the Q15 ever did or would. And so they reinstated him and said that it was like he'd never been excommunicated, but of course he had been excommunicated and everybody knew it. But anyway, I don't want to rant a long time about this, and I just, you know, here we are in a time that's been foretold for thousands of years, and we're commanded to wake up to our awful situation. And yet, there's still a bunch of people, even KSL, the most satanic news media on planet Earth, tells people to vote for Kamala in order to, you know, have Satan be the one that sits on the throne. And so, you know, that's where we're at. And so, you know, I just thought I'd put this out there, and, you know, I hope you'll comment on it and tell me what you think. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.